Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I am going over the Arizona U.S. Senate race between Republican challenger Blake Masters and Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly. So the Real Clear Politics polling average as of November 1st is Mark Kelly is leading with 47.1% of the vote to Blake Masters' 44.8% of the vote. As you can tell by the margins here, there are still a lot of undecided voters yet left, and Mark Kelly only having 47, to be completely honest with you, is a little concerning. You would hope that, I'll be getting into it later, but for a Republican challenger described as not as strong as some of the other ones, you would think Mark Kelly would be able to poll a little bit better than this. Now, some past races, Mark Kelly did win in 2020. That being said, he defeated Martha McSally in a 1v1 Democrat versus Republican race, 51.2% to 48.8%. Now, again, you're going to see the numbers of 1.7 million votes and 1.6 million votes, respectively. This is in 2020, presidential election year. Turnout was very, very high. I believe it was around 70% off the top of my head. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe around 70%. That will not be the case this time around, but nevertheless, a very, very close election. And back in 2018, Kirsten Sinema also defeated Martha McSally, again by a closer margin. This one was 1.2 to 1.1 roughly in terms of votes. That's, I think, more likely what we will see in 2022 than in 2020. And lastly, Arizona in 2016. The last time a Republican won a Senate seat in Arizona was John McCain in 2016. 1.359 million votes, 53.7% of the vote, to Ann Kirkpatrick's 40.8% of the vote. Now, the most important issues for Arizona voters. What are the key issues? Well, according to a Fox News poll that was just released, it's the most recent poll that's out. Inflation was 26% of people's most important issue. Border security was 20%. Election integrity and abortion were tied for third with 15%. So, honestly, a pretty balanced spread in the state of Arizona, but inflation, you would have to expect, would favor Blake Masters. Border security, again, Blake Masters. Election integrity would probably favor Mark Kelly, to be completely honest with you, unless it swings a different direction. And then abortion would favor Mark Kelly. So, the only one I know for a fact would favor, one way or the other, would be abortion would favor Mark Kelly. Otherwise, the rest of them are either Masters leaning or at least very, very competitive. Now, what are some key notables for this race to point out? Well, for starters, Mark Kelly, as I mentioned, has been consistently polling ahead in the polls. But it's only by a very thin margin, which is a little concerning when there are a lot of undecided voters left with not this much time left in the election. I would usually hedge my bet and say that favors the challenger. If the incumbent support has not been solid and figured out by now, it's a little concerning. Now, that being said, Masters has been characterized by Kelly and the Democrats as being, quote, too extreme for Arizona, being a more MAGA type of candidate. And in the past, we've seen a candidate like Martha McSally, who was considered a MAGA candidate, not do too well. So we'll find out if this is true or not. However, 2022 is a different election cycle than both 2018 and 2020. Both of those were Democratic, either wave years or Democratic-leaning years. There are still a lot of undecided voters left, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average. I think I've covered that a few times now. The nationwide momentum is swinging towards the Republicans as of late. Republicans are gaining in pretty much every single competitive seat over the last few days or so, and Arizona is actually another one of those cases of we're seeing Blake Masters' numbers start to go up a little bit. This is where my big concern for Mark Kelly is. He has only reached above 50% in one poll out of the last 10, and it was a New York Times Siena poll. So, for Mark Kelly, it's not like he's putting away Blake Masters. He's not getting above 50, which he needs to do in Arizona. For a Democrat to win, they can't do it with a plurality of the vote. They have to get above 50. And Mark Kelly has not been doing a good job of doing that. Also, earlier news today, Libertarian candidate just dropped out and endorsed Blake Masters, which should only help Masters, might cut down some of the third-party vote. But I will say this, no matter the result, I expect this race to be super, super close, and a 2% difference or less is how I see this going. Now, with that said, my forecast and analysis for this race is Blake Masters. I actually have him right now pulling an upset and winning this race, getting 49.1% of the vote to Mark Kelly's 48.61% of the vote. And my reasoning for this is, by the way, the turnout will be about 54%. I think Blake Masters has more solid support that'll turn out for him, I don't think Mark Kelly is doing a good enough job at getting people to turn out and vote for him. I think he, like many other Democrats nationwide, are just collapsing and fumbling at the wrong time. Where they should be trying to gain support before the election, a lot of voters are going away from them. And I think Mark Kelly may actually end up losing this race very narrowly because not as much Democrats are excited to turn out for him that say Republicans are. Now, going to the map, this is what I have for Masters and Kelly. Masters wins the typical Republican counties. Maricopa County, which is the county right here where Phoenix is in the center, does narrowly go for Mark Kelly. And this is where I think the Republicans are now in the state of Arizona, which is they expect the Democrats will probably win Maricopa County most of the time. But can they keep the margins down? And I think the margins in Maricopa County will be very, very thin. Maybe Mark Kelly winning it by a point or two. That would be enough for Masters to narrowly eke out a win in Arizona. So this is the map that I have. Going to the United States Senate projections as a whole, right now I have Republicans at 47, Democrats at 47. And giving Arizona to Blake Masters gets the Republicans at 48, Democrats still 47. I made New Hampshire's call a few days ago. Don Bolduc has a poll out in New Hampshire that shows Don Bolduc is leading now. I'm probably not going to revisit it just because the election's in a few days, but nevertheless, New Hampshire's one to keep an eye on too. If New Hampshire were to flip, I wouldn't exactly be super surprised at this stage of the game. So, Republicans 48, Democrats 47. Blake Masters pulling an upset win here. Leave a comment below telling me what you think. Please like the video, and I will see you in the next one.